I'm a licensed clinician and have been for just about 15 years. But prior to that, I've been in the health and fitness industry for, a couple of decades, but business development for a little over 20 years. So combining all of that together really had me come together and put like this one-stop shop. So becoming everything that I know I needed as a business professional, as a woman, as an entrepreneur, and developing programs that says, hey, what does any adult need in this day and age? So I came out with the Psych series. And what's one of the main things that we all need as humans? We're here for reproduction more than anything else. So becoming part of the sexual awareness and the human body and biological awareness movement. I started out also in 2007 working with the sex addiction movement, training Southern Nevada. Our social workers, I remember that day coming in and saying, okay, we're all going to learn what sex addiction is. And everyone going, we're going to talk about this openly. We sure are, because it's a thing. And so, again, it's just, I worked towards closing the gaps on just about everything. Minus technology, I think that's the only area that I don't touch. So I'm very much that people-centered place versus the technology-centered place. Although I am liking what pandemic did bring. It helped bring us all together without having borders or oceans in between us now.
Absolutely. And even this project is a result of the pandemic and how interviews can now be done easily, efficiently, no matter where you are in the world. I want to go back to a few things you said that I found really interesting. Yeah. First and foremost, you talked about the fact that we're here to reproduce. We're sexual beings. Yet that seems to be offensive to people when you try to talk to them about sexuality. From your perspective, why are we still so uncomfortable with our sexuality?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, the generations before us. I don't know where you fall in age range, but I'm Asian, so I hold it very, very well. Thank goodness. But the generations before us, it was one of those things that we just didn't talk about. We weren't given the sex education beyond the, okay, you're supposed to kind of wait till marriage or whatever. And it's taboo. We just don't say anything about it. But then if you look back at those family photos, how many kids were they having? That's like, oh, okay, we know what you guys were doing, but we're not going to talk about it. So it's everything was about this. We have to work. They were really built on ethics of do this. They put this due diligence in of go to work, create a family, leave your legacy, just grind your entire life and then retire eventually and pass it along. So it was more about focusing on the work, not about anything else. And so you couldn't talk about the pleasurable things because work was not supposed to be fun. So we didn't highlight anything as the feel goods. And so sex is a feel good. It's our pleasure center. Again, this is what our bodies are built for. We're built for reproduction. We're built for pleasure. We're built for fun. Some of us are practice, not product, and that's okay too. But we weren't going to talk about it. It wasn't generationally going to be passed down, although we knew it happened. And so now we're coming into this whole different catapult of sexuality. Thank goodness, finally. And everyone's starting to ask questions like, hey, why can't we talk about this? Why can't we just say, I enjoy this? And we're going to be a little bit more open about it. And we're going to be a little bit more free. And maybe I like this and I like that. Oh, maybe I like it all. And that's okay too. And you don't get to say, I'm not allowed to do that anymore. The older generations are, a lot of them are not around anymore. Fact of life, it's a cycle, it happens. And so now that that part's tapering off, it's opening up doors. And we have to be willing to listen because it's not ever going to go away. We're not just going to disappear off the planet because we're not going to stop doing what we're built for.
First and foremost, it's interesting because when I usually ask people why they think we're so uncomfortable with sexuality, they bring up, well, we have these religious roots, and that's so true. But there's still a little bit of a disconnect that I think that you really touched on, which is the fact of if we focus too much on something that is pleasurable, it potentially could lead to us not being as willing to work hard without any pleasure, not take any breaks, not go on any vacations, and just get everything done. And as you mentioned too about the generational thing, we're seeing the younger generation, even younger than me, and their business formula and their motto is not work 9 to 5. It's not work very, very hard. They're becoming millionaires very quickly using technology, but they are working less than I think any of us.
Absolutely. And actually, it was even just this year, something that I've been trying to do for decades now is change the corporate structure because it has been the rat race and anxiety driven and stress driven old mentality for so long of you need that grind, you need that grind. Well, Gallup in April of 2023, so just this year, finally said, no, we need to take a wellness perspective, operate off of self-care, adjust to the mental health. Now, mental health is not the equivalent of mental illness. It is psychological well-being, social well-being, emotional well-being. We need to address those things so that we have happier employees. Productivity goes up, profitability goes up. The younger generation understands that. They're operating off of pleasure centers in all three realms. That is what mental health is. It's why I became a therapist. That's why I switched from business major to psych major. We, again, operate off of pleasure. We will be more productive. Businesses will be more profitable. Economy will be robust if we just bring this in. And so, yes, it is definitely one of those things that is a generational gap that we're fixing. And yes, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I completely agree with you. I have known and seen it to be true. Like you said, when people are operating off of pleasure as opposed to stress and fear, anxiety, and burnout, the results are so much more impactful, powerful, and long-term. I'm curious, what led you down this path? Because you, like we grew up in generations where we weren't encouraged to operate in a pleasure center or to explore pleasure. How did you get here?
Well, one with cultural norms being what they were. And I grew up in San Francisco, a very, very diverse set of structures. And I come from an immigrant family. My father raised me in a way that said, pay attention because nothing is ever going to be handed to you. So I was very observational as I was growing up. He also said, learn a little bit about a lot of different things and you'll always have work. There's that older generation work ethic. So as I was growing up, I learned a lot about a lot. And I was seeing disparity after disparity, but yet no one looked happy. And I said, okay, well, what makes people happy? I saw happiness within families. And I saw families, obviously I knew birds and bees, families are built obviously through reproduction. People have children, they have extensions all the way through. And it's like, okay, well, if this is part of how our bodies work, I went more into the neurological component, neuropsych component. What makes our brains feel pleasure? Well, that led into the whole sex piece of it. Again, that's just our biology and all of the other things that, and I'm sure you've heard it, we've all heard it somewhere. Oh, well, exercise feels like sex. Certain foods feel like sex. certain accomplishments, awards, rewards, praise. It gives us that same pleasure, that same rise in our dopamine sensors, all of those things. So I followed that track all the way through. I said, okay, feel good, obviously feels good. It brings us to a better place. And so I'm going to do something with this, but I'm going to do it so that it encompasses everything that we do as adults and as human beings as a whole, no matter what line of identity, gender, culture, business structure, profession, anywhere and anything that you can think of, it needs to be encompassed. And so I've been on a global impact movement. I've kind of been all over the place in the last 8 weeks, right down to receiving international awards for trying to make changes so that this is seen and that we can operate from this direction.
Beautiful.
So thank you.
When you're seeing clients, what would you say, if there is one, is a main or repeated complaint that they're coming to you with or need?
Oh, this one's fun. Whether it's a single or a couple, it really does come back to my sex life is falling off. I'm too tired. I'm just not as interested anymore. My self-esteem is taking a hit. I'm feeling rejected. I'm comparing myself to somebody else. And what it really does come down to, again, is that affection from one person to the next, the recognition from one person to the next. We've become so wrapped in social norms or cultural expectations, but ultimately it comes down to the physical contact. And if we're denying what we're supposed to be built for, it has psychological effects, physical effects, and then that takes its toll on the relationship matters, the emotional matters, functioning all the way around. And it's literally more than half of what a relationship is about, whether some people want to admit it or not. It's always going to be that way. We're communal beings. We're meant to be this way.
I love that you said it like that. We're communal beings and we're meant to be this way, because there's an inherent permission in saying it like that to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
When so many things in society and culture are kind of pushing us towards this hyper independent solo life, the truth is that we can survive on our own in this day and age because of technology advancements in life. So many people are living or thinking hyper independently, but like you said, there are so many repercussions psychologically and I'm sure physiologically,
Yes.
from losing connection to each other.
Mm-hmm. We just we don't live as long. Especially, we know that happier individuals have longer cellular life. We also see that people that have lifelong partners, what happens when one passes away? Especially when we see those ones that have been in love for so many years, very quickly they pass too.
Yep.
So a part of them goes with them. We're meant to have these companionships, even if it's not in the intimate sense sometimes, because there's physical barriers that can be in the way sometimes. But we do have a connection with other people. That's how we exist. It's always going to be that way. And I can say this, especially this is a wonderful platform to say this. My grandfather even had a child at 75 years old. I have little siblings, very young little siblings. My youngest siblings are 2-year-old twin boys. So yes, go team reproduction. It can happen for decades because it's what we're meant to do. This is that sense of human existence that we're meant to keep going. With children, they don't have judgment, they don't have reasoning. That's why they go do a whole bunch of things. And as adults, we're going, oh no, what were you thinking?
Yeah, they just do what feels good in the moment.
Yes, they're pleasure beings. Frontal lobe development doesn't kick in and with girls until 22 to 24, and in males 25 to 27. They don't have judgment.
Oh, wow.
Oh
27,
yeah.
like in our 20s? Wow.
So there's a lot of reasons why we just impulsively go do things. It's why families were formed so early in earlier times. We, again, reproductively starting periods very early because that's when we were at our prime. We were in our best physical shape to produce at that time. We also didn't live as long, so we were more geared to carry with a healthy body. We also weren't exposed to the chemicals that we were now, compared to nowadays. So sure, we can pump out as many kiddos as we needed. That's what we're meant to do. Now we overthink a whole lot of things, and I'm going to wait and I'm going to wait and I'm going to wait. Well, there's repercussions to that as well, which is why fertility is coming down in so many, because we are putting it off. And that brings in a whole nother line of things. So yes, this is a topic. These are topics that can go in so many directions. It's a pretty crazy web when it's untangled.
When I look back at what I was doing when I was 24, it was a lot more impulsive. And there wasn't that reasoning, but it was actually in my early 20s compared to now, there was that reasoning did start to kick in right around 24, 25 when I think about it, now that you mentioned it. And before that, it was more impulsive or, well, I want to do this, so I'm going to. Now there is that, well, I want to do it, but
Yes.
XYZ. A lot more of that. In your research, I can tell you're very researched on the matter. And in your experience of actually seeing clients, I'm curious what you would say is the biggest or one of the biggest misconceptions that we have in general about human sexuality or human connection.
Okay, so one of the biggest misconceptions about sexuality over time, especially amongst couples or even on an individual base, is that it fades over time, that somehow, some way, our sexuality just tapers off, or our sexual drive or our desire is supposed to fade with age. It does not. It's our energy and effort sometimes will taper off, and that has to do with a lot of how we think. It's what are we thinking? Why did our desire or our little, fun side, why did we put it off to the side? Where did we let go? What happened to that little wild child in us? Because it doesn't have to go anywhere. If we want it, it's always supposed to be there. So psychological impotence is one of the biggest blocks when it comes to sexuality at any age. Even when it comes to erectile dysfunction, we can get medical clearance and it could be perfectly fine, but there's still some issues. So you have to question, okay, well, what is the mental block that's stopping it? Because sometimes it has more to do with what's going on in the headspace than in the headspace. So it's something to think about. I hear women all the time, oh, well, I'm going through menopause and I just don't want sex anymore. I go, are you kidding me? We got that estrogen out of the way, that neediness, that nurturing, that caring thing. Now we're testosterone driven. Come on, we're the equivalent of like two 20-year-olds or like three 20-year-olds at this point. Our drive is high because we're not worried about taking care of anybody. We're like, come on, boys. We just traded in the classic car for a bunch of sports cars. Let's go. And remember, ladies, we don't have recovery time. We're always ready. It's fine. And so it's that it doesn't go anywhere if you don't want it to go anywhere. Men, same thing. You got to keep it going. And sometimes testosterone is like vitamins. We need our vitamins to keep going and feel good. Sometimes you just have to check those things out too. Your body is just a machine like anything else. We have to keep it up. You want to tune it up. We're not going to drag the raggedy car all over the place. It's not going to get us far. Take care of it and you'll be fine. Because again, our bodies are built for pleasure. Our minds are built for pleasure. So keep it going and you keep going longer and longer and longer. So don't let any misconception get in the way of you feeling good.
Oh, I love that. So, yeah, basically what you're saying is we're pleasure-centered beings. We were meant to be, and we're built that way. But because we have these ideas that we shouldn't be unless it's these conditions, or shouldn't be after this age or stage of life, or whatever the case is, we shut ourselves down.
Yes.
But it's natural for us to actually stay sexual and vibrant.
Yes. And the reasons we do shut off, there's a reason that women go through menopause, because we're not supposed to be taking care of anything anymore. We're not supposed to be spitting out babies anymore. No. We're built for fun now.
Fun.
We are. Yes. Our time of taking care of is done. Leave it to the younger ones. That's their job now. So the after 40, it's good time. Good times rolling.
Well, what about let's address a woman who, let's say she's 48, I'm making this up, but she's married and she might still have older kids or maybe a kid at home. I don't know. But what if she feels maybe this internal drive to be free and to have fun, but she's feeling pressure from her life to stay in that caretaking role?
Oh, some of my funnest clients. I get a lot of it. And it's rediscovering her old self. One of the first activities I will do with a woman like that is have her sit and close her eyes and remember one of her most fun, most wild, most explorative sexual dates. Just anyone. It doesn't have to be something she has to say out loud, and make her remember. And then all of a sudden I'll see her kind of just wiggling in that seat and ask her how she felt in that moment when she can regenerate all of those things again. When the brain kicks in and figures out, oh, I like that. Oh, I remember that. It becomes a deservability issue. It's like, do you feel like you deserve that again? Because everybody deserves a feel good. It's something that you've done. It's something that you've known. Why shouldn't you have that again? What's preventing you? What's getting in your way? Because society doesn't have to live in your skin, only you do. So here's your empowerment moment. Tell me what you want, and then we tell you, or I'll tell you, how we get there.
Beautiful. Would you say you tend to work more with women versus men individually, or couples more? What would you say if there is a group that makes up a larger amount of your client base?
Oh, it's very, very equal across the board. Even if I tend to get a woman in first, when the sexual relationship comes up, the couple ends up coming in together. And it's, how do we fix this? How do we work on this? He may not want to say certain things, or she may not want to say certain things. And once they realize that there is absolutely no judgment, there's nothing that they cannot bring to the table, there's nothing I get embarrassed about, and there's nothing that is going to say, oh, they're wrong or they have deviant type things, that there's nothing within my office space or my virtual space that is going to be, at all. It's whatever somebody likes, cool, let's go with it. As long as it doesn't require a legal and or medical, I think we're fine. And that's really that freedom. that we should all have. And so once I normalize their desire, because again, human desire is normal, then they feel like, okay, we are fine. Then we can explore and we can open up our sexual relationship all over again, especially for the couples that have been together for a really long time. They're like, oh, well, that was fine when we were young because everybody expected us just to be wild kids. It's like, well, why can't you be wild adults? Why not?
Yeah, I mean that acceptance makes people feel so safe. And it's
Mm-hmm.
something that so many people are yearning for. You know, obviously, this company, us being from LiveJasmin, I've interviewed now hundreds of LiveJasmin members. And when I ask them, what is it that keeps you on the site? Because many of them that are willing to give an interview and be seen on camera, you know, they've been with the site for 15 years, 18 years, 10 years. They're loyal to the site. So I asked them, what is it about the site that has kept you? And many times it's exactly what you just talked about, which is they found a model who allows them to completely and freely voice their desires, their
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, their fantasies, or even just talk about something that's going on in their life that's difficult for them and to not be judged. And they are so certain and in that fact that they're being accepted and even celebrated and not judged that I've had many of them tell me that they talk to models about things they've never told anyone else.
It's amazing. They almost become the pseudo therapist.
Oh, yes.
It's great. And I over the years, I'm one of the very few therapists that worked with the street girls, worked with the casino girls, the high level escorts. I've worked with the sex industry for a very long time. Of the 141 sex related facilities in Las Vegas, I've been to all of them. Proudly, I will say that.
I
I'm
love
one of the few that has the cunt coloring book in my office and make
that.
photocopies, and we'll sit there and color them. I've given diagram pictures of it. It's wonderful. And it's, again, normalize this stuff and it doesn't become a problem.
Right. It's when things actually go underground that they
Mhm.
become a problem. I'm curious, you know, from your perspective, what are some of the benefits of adult work or cam work or any of it?
One is satisfaction of human nature, reduction of aggression, reduction of stress. Literally, one of the biggest stress components is no release on our natural hormones. I think we hear what sexual tension is. Oh, there's so much sexual tension. I'm not releasing anything. A man that holds too much testosterone, tell him go work out or go do this. Okay, masturbation is key. Do you masturbate? No. Okay, well, you're kind of full right now.
Mhm.
How about a little release? What happens when we all orgasm? We're like, oh, okay, yay. Thank you. I appreciate that. How many couples can openly say, or even watching this video and say, yeah, if I really want something, sure, I'll lay them all day long and be like, honey, can I have that thing? Great. Okay. Thanks. Bye. Be right back. We know this to be true. We may not want to say it out loud, but it is what it is. Huge amount of stress relief. We've seen it even in movies. Something About Mary, a great example. Dude, whack it off right before you go on the date because then it's going to relieve all the tension in the world. So we can say it in comedy type ways, but we know it to be true. So, yes, this is where it is part of a way to just let go. So having access to camps, saying, hey, this is part of your normal human nature, get some release. Even with children, I've had to put masturbation posters because I've had clinics with ADHD children, ASD children, but telling the boys, or when I work with single moms of all boys, I have to do the masturbation conversation. I'm like, boys, you're waking up and like you got little pump tents. You don't know what to do with it. You're going to hit it and you're like, ow. Oh, masturbation is going to be normal. It's going to relieve a lot of things. You're going to notice you're not as angry. But then we have to time it and, we have to make sure we're doing it in the right places. These are all okay things. We just have to know that there's times and places when we do things, when we don't do things, because you can get in trouble. So we have to live within certain boundaries for the sake of everybody. But it doesn't mean we stop doing what's natural. I've worked with even young lesbian couples. They want to experiment with toys, strap-ons. I've had a whole myriad of toys and examples and having to go through, okay, female masturbation. It's like, hey, yes, that thing down there, it's called a clitoris. We all have one. You could touch it. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not going to like run away from you. I promise. It's still attached. Or how to do certain things and be okay with your own body. Sex positivity, body awareness, all of these things have to be, again, normalized because it will be the thing that we take with us till the day we die. It's not going anywhere.
The way that you share things, it's also in a funny and playful way, and it's entertaining, and so I can see, like, if I were seeing a therapist for something like this, I would want them to have your personality too, where they could lighten things up by making it playful and fun. I'm curious, what is your drive or your goal behind your work? Do you have like a mission or something that just really motivates you?
Change the stigma, whether it's on sexual awareness, whether it's on identity awareness, whether it's on cultural disparity, whether it's in even corporate realm, addressing the mental health needs, to stop the internal damage that happens with being quiet or being forced to be quiet. As humans, we're going to have a range of emotions, and it's not fair. It's not fair to allow, whether it's a group or a norm that somewhere somehow was created, to allow people to feel like they can't speak up or they can't have a voice or that they have to shutter under something and they can't just be who they are. And so that's what I fight the hardest for. And that's what I advocate for across pretty much all boards. It's allowing everybody to have a place and feel safe always.
Did you feel like you had that at a younger age?
Culturally, being Filipina, we are, especially with the girls, we're raised in you're very much silenced. You are treated a certain way. There's a lot of anxiety. It's a shame-based culture. I write a lot about this. I speak a lot to this, that we aren't given a voice, especially with the girls. We're not given a voice until you're a mother, and then you're supposed to be this very commanding and almost demeaning style voice where you dictate a whole lot of things. The boys are given a whole different set of lack of responsibility in certain household things. And so again, with that huge disparity, that's one of the reasons, that's I think one of the main catalysts that I do try and close the gap. Because again, nobody should have to feel like they don't have a voice.
That's really beautiful. I love when people have taken an experience that was challenging, hard, or even painful, and they use that as their gift to the world. I think that that is how you rectify, your own life. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you could give one practical piece of advice to women listening about their sexuality, and one practical piece of advice to any men listening.
I'll go men first,
Okay.
because I get this so often. My number one question that men ask me is, what do I do about the fact that my partner doesn't want to have sex?
Mm.
And I say, men, you'll have to trust me on this one. Just trust me. Initiating house chores is probably one of the sexiest things you could ever do, because the last thing we ever want to do is nag and have to tell you what to do. Just trust me on this one.
Yeah, it's like
It is. It's sexy. It gets a woman all kind of like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Now he's doing this, and now he's doing, okay, I really, really like that. The guys are usually skeptical. I do a husband's course on it. I'm like, all right, if this doesn't work, next session's on me. Without fail, they're like, oh my God, that actually worked. I'm like,
yes,
because there's nothing like a nice big man that doesn't need to be told what to do and be like, honey, look, I'm taking this out. It's like, you may as well put a stripper pole inside the laundry room because you're getting laid. Just saying.
100%, because there's a message communicated there, which is, I'm taking some stuff off your plate, babe, and you don't even have to tell me. It's like, all right,
Yes.
you're gonna take some stuff off my plate. Wait till you see what I do to your plate later. You know?
Ex- and exactly my point. And ladies, sometimes you have, again, this is one of those, trust me on this. A man loves to feel appreciated and also loves to feel like he's a man. Allow him to do the things, even if you're better at it. Let them do it. Let them be a man and say, I appreciate you, and say that say the thank you,
Mhm.
because then that allows them to take more initiative. And then you don't have to nag, and you'll realize it's a lot easier. It takes things off your plate. And trust me, this starts to go back and forth really, really nicely. And then it's game on. So for those in a relationship that do these two pieces, it becomes very, very fun. So
I agree.
yes, that's my couples 101 that I do, whether it's live or virtual. Yes, those are the beginning steps.
I can I can confirm that I have seen those things work. So, is there anything about your work, human connection, human sexuality that we haven't talked about, but you want to share or touch on?
One, I guess, really, especially for the women, don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to walk into maybe one of those adult stores.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to try something on. Don't be afraid to maybe for the first time ever feel sexy or feel beautiful in something you would have never put on. Because trust me, most of these partners of yours, they think you're beautiful every day. They think you're sexy every day. And some of these things enhance it, but it has to come from you first and foremost. But if you do not try, and if you're not trying to change your mindset, then nothing else is ever going to change. So it's going to start from you. Your sexiness is always going to come from within. The outside stuff is decoration, but have fun with it. Explore, 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 explore.
I love that.
So, yes, that's always the fun stuff.
And I think that that piece right there of exploring our sexual selves fully is the piece that we've all more or less, at least before this younger generation, we've been missing.
Oh, yeah. And why? Again, we lived without for so long. So, hey, don't live without anymore. Just go do it. Nike had something to it when they said, just do it. Just go do it.
Just do it. Just do it. Amen. You have your permission right here. Go explore yourself, figure out what you want. And I think also we all have to try not to judge. You know, if something's not for us, that's okay. But we can't judge. What's that saying? Don't yuck someone's yum.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
My final question for you is, what do you think are our next steps in really moving forward in a more sexually positive and well society?
Having conversations, being willing to even have platforms like this one be readily available. Is it really hurting anybody? Does it hurt to say, hey, look, here is an option available for people to view? It's making the conversation okay, pretty much at any age. It's bringing light into these without having it on special networks. Because again, this is our biological base. We don't need to hide. We don't need to be in the shadows. We need to start opening the doors to everything that is human. We need to start opening the doors to everything that is going to, and we have to see it this way from a very scientific perspective, if anything's ever going to change, of what's going to sustain us as a species. And we can't ignore this, which means we need to stop with the stigma. We need to stop with the labeling. We need to stop with the judgment, because that's not going to get us anywhere.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you?
So I'm available at thepsychseries.com and on Instagram at the Psych Series as well.